Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Aruna Texture Baker tutorial. This add-on is designed to automate the texture baking process in Blender. It features two main modes, high to low poly baking and material converter. Let's start with the first mode. After importing your high poly and low poly model, you can check each part with Object Checker. Here, you can set the suffix for low poly and high poly objects. Then check whether the objects in the scene are ready for baking or not. If there is an error with any object, the log will appear in the section at the bottom of the tab. Meanwhile, objects that are valid for baking will be grouped into the high poly and low poly lists. The next tab is Object Selector. Here you can choose the objects that were previously checked in the Object Checker tab to be baked. At the bottom, there is a list of materials that will be baked, along with a button to check the UV map for each material. The third tab is Cage Setting. This is where all cage-related settings for baking are located. At the top, there are fields for the cage suffix and cage collection name, followed by three buttons: Create, Replace, and Delete Cage. The difference between Create and Replace is that Create will not modify any existing cages, while Replace will recreate all cages entirely. So, if there is a new object that requires a cage, you can simply add a new cage without affecting the existing ones by using Create. After creating the cages, the Edit Cage button will be enabled, and you can start editing the cages. Those who have used Substance 3D Painter may find this interface familiar, since the workflow is inspired by the cage editing system in Substance Painter. When entering Cage Edit mode, there are two extrusion options available: Global and Individual. In Global mode, there is only a single extrusion value that is applied to all cages. Meanwhile, in Individual mode, each cage can have its own separate extrusion value. Additionally, in Individual mode, you can sculpt each cage manually, allowing for more precise ray control. Let me sculpt all the cages real quick. After finishing the cage setup, the last tab is Bake Setting. Here, you can choose which texture maps you want to bake. At the top, there are mesh maps, such as normal, ambient occlusion, and other maps. Below that, there are PBR maps, such as color, roughness, metallic, and more. However, since my high poly model does not have any PBR textures, I will only bake the mesh maps. Below that, there are additional settings such as Bake Device, Resolution, Samples, and Output Directory. Once everything is ready, you can simply start the baking process. After the baking process is complete, you can start using the baked maps. Here's a side-by-side comparison between the high poly model and the low poly model with the baked maps applied. The next mode is Material Converter mode. In this mode, there are only two tabs: Material Checker and Bake Setting. For this tutorial, I'll be using the same model as before, but this time it has already been textured. This way, we can convert the existing materials into different output formats for various workflows and game engines. So, let's get started. The Material Checker tab works similarly to the Object Selector tab from the previous mode. Here you can select the objects you want to bake, and at the bottom, there is also a UV map checker to make sure everything is ready. Next, in the Bake Setting tab, you can choose the output format, such as Principled BSDF, Unity URP, or Unreal Engine. You can also configure other settings like the Bake Device, Resolution, and more. Once everything is set up, simply press the Bake button. After the baking process is complete, You can use the generated maps directly inside your game engine. Thank you for watching. You can download the add-on for free through the link in the description below. If you have some spare time, please consider filling out the questionnaire linked in the description as well. Once again, thank you so much and see you around.